Good evening, everyone, and thank you all for joining us today. My name is Rashmita, and I'm the event planner for Microsoft Reactor India. I'm here today joined by our very own host Kamal and our special guest speaker Samik. But before we start the session, I would request you all to read our code of conduct. We are all here to learn together, so please be respectful of other people's views, understanding of differences, being kind and considerate in the way you engage. The chat section is open throughout, and we do encourage you all to participate. Our speakers will answer all your questions during the session, so please feel free to drop all your questions in the chat section. With this, let me bring in Kamal.
Hey
Thank you all once
Rashmika,
again. Hey Kamal, how are you?
all good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you. The stage is
All
all yours.
all right, thank you so much. So, good evening, good morning from wherever you're joining. Thank you so much for joining for another series of Copilot Chronicles. Thank you so much for the overwhelming response and views and comments that we get for every episode that we launch on Thursday, 5 p.m. IST. And today, without further ado, today it's going to be a very different topic. Usually, we've been talking about Copilot, agents, studio. So today we have a different topic and different genre to be explored, and we have an expert to talk about it. So today we have something called as build a prompt book to empower SOC analysts. So the title itself has so many words in it. So just to break it down, I know Samak is going to go 1 hour live, talk about it, and explain a more detailed stuff about it. But just wanted to understand. Now, when I talk about prompt book, it means you're building a practical, well-structured collection of AI prompts. That is what I'm looking as a prompt book, and see how these prompts help analyst. Because at the end of the day, just creating a prompt and keeping it's not gonna work. You have to ensure that it kind of helps you to work faster, smarter, and more consistently with the help of or to empower Security Operations Center. So that is what Samik is going to talk about. And without further ado, let me welcome today's speaker, Samik Roy, who's been an MVP for a very long time, and he's been handling a lot of security related advocacy, and he's been a cloud security expert also, kind of specializing in scalable implementations and primary with Microsoft Sentinels. So without further ado, Samik, welcome to Copilot Chronicles.
Thank you, Kamal, and thank you for inviting me in. All right. Um,
Yeah, the stage is all yours, so go ahead. Looking forward for your session.
Thank you again. Thank you, Rashmida, and thank you, Reactor team, for hosting me in. So basically, we are going to talk about, as the title says, building a prompt book to empower SOC analyst, right? So before we even go there, right? So let me walk you through. And again, always I would like to have a little bit of demo in the session, so you'd see less slides, so please bear with me for some time on the slides, and then we can quickly jump on to Copilot for Security portal, walk you through how you can actually build your own prompt book, right? And happy to answer all the questions. Now, as of today, right, if you look at security landscape, there are like definitely more than hundreds of tools and things like that. And one of the things Microsoft is trying to do, right, that reduce the number of tools, and Microsoft has its unified SIEM platform, which is Microsoft Sentinel, and then there is device management for Intune, there is other products for data governance purview, things like that, right? Having said all the products, they do their job. Let's say we talk about defenders, right? Defender has different flavors, which we talk about. Let's say defender for identity, defender for endpoint, defender for office. So every product does its own job, and majority of them are basically working on a behavioral pattern. So it doesn't work on query as such. It creates alerts, and those alert, right? So obviously they will start creating only alert. But when we talk about managing and operationalizing those alerts, right, that's called Security Operations Center. So That's where exactly, I mean, if you have many of you worked on SOC already, you see that big screen running in the SOC team, right? Which is basically giving you all the live updates of the incident. Something goes wrong, you would have SLAs, you would have things to address. Let's say something comes up at a high severity, it has to be responded within, or it has to be picked up within 10 minutes and things like that, right? So with this incident fatigues and more of the SOCs, right? Because Sentinel being there in the market, there are also other SOC provider who come to Microsoft ecosystem. So majority of the SOC, right, what they do is they come up with their own notion of monitoring. So it's like the thumb rule, right? If you talk about 5 years, 6 years back, any SOC tool you talk about, everybody has a thumb rule. Okay, the more the rule, the better the coverage. So which is not absolutely true as of today, right? And especially with the AI powered Sentinel and SOC environments, right? So now what is happening? So as a SOC analyst, let's say if I receive an alert, let me get to the one. I'll just give you a little bit of background before we even start the agenda, right? Fundamentally, what is happening? We would say, okay, we got an alert as an analyst. Either we're working in L1, L2, L3, whichever. Now that says impossible travel. Now that's the information we have, right? Now with that, what as an analyst we're going to do? Maybe what you're going to do is look at, impossible travel, look at where it is coming from, look at, okay, impossible travel is because the user is signed in from, let's say, a general location which is 1,000 kilometers away from the current one, right? So things like that. Now if you understand that those processes and those steps really takes longer, let's say incident comes in, right? Then it takes around 30 to 45 minutes, right, to address all the scenarios. And after 45 minutes of research, you would be arriving at a pace or at a place where you'd be able to decide, okay, this is really a true alert or it's a false positive alert. Now that is the thing. Now imagine that when a SOC is created and started and gets operationalized, right? So recently, I was talking to a few folks. They are like an enterprise, right? So they get like, I think they're getting alerts or incident in multiple of thousands. So you can imagine, right? And the team is how big the team can be. It's 5 people, 6 people team. Now imagine that 5 and 6 people team managing like 500, sorry, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 alerts a day or incident a day, right? It not only exhausts, it also gives you a fear. Okay, what if I miss something? So now to go a little bit further, right, what at a matured SOC level, what we see is we try to see certain things which is called incident response plan. So what an incident response plan means, let's say I give you an example of impossible travel, right? I would give you different example, maybe brute force login, or come back to the same example, right? So once that alert comes in, if I'm a part of a matured SOC, right, we would have a definite set of steps to be carried out. Let's say, as I said, look at the sign in logs, look at the failed sign in, look at the other details, things like that. Look at in what is the blast radius for the sign in, that means in last 30 days, what are the places the user has logged in from, things like that, right? That's called an incident response plans, right? Now incident response plans are definitely detailed out once the alerts keeps on coming, repeating things, right? Now that's the good part that is there, but imagine that troubleshooting or optimizing the alert, at a level wherein you have 5,000, 6,000 alerts a day, right? Now let me put some more complexity on top of it. Let's say while you're troubleshooting, right, so you get an incident wherein you say that, okay, a malicious script is executed at the endpoint, and then you get a script. Either it can be PowerShell, it can be Python, it can be like bash script, right? And it's really a complex thing. It is written without formation. Obviously that wrap text will be not be there, so it's technically not readable, right? Now imagine that as a normal person, again coming back to the skill set as well, as a normal person, how would you identify that? And how do you understand, like, is it a really a wrong script, or it's just like somebody wrote it for fun, keep opening notepad like 10,000 times, right? So now combining all those things, right, that's where Microsoft Security Copilot comes into the play. And I think this is the only copilot which is different in nature because this doesn't come with a licensing model. And obviously, there are other copilots. They are very specific. If we talk about Azure Copilot or maybe M365 Copilot, right? They are limited within the boundary of M365, wherein the Security Copilot comes with a lot of feature wherein you can integrate other products into it as well. Let's say you're running a SOC, right? And your endpoint is, let's say, these CrowdStrike, for example, right? You can create a plugin and things like that and integrate all that. So in the demo I have, right, I'll try to show you like how we can create a plugin which basically goes to other vendor itself, check their IP addresses and gives me response in sorry, in the prompt book itself, right? Now, again, that was the backstory, what is happening now. If we look at the agenda itself, right? So, first of all, we'd say, introduction to prompt books and anatomy of effective prompts. How do you write it? That means how a sophisticated prompt can be written. And the reason I'm using prompt because that's a fundamental, you know, building blocks for prompt books, which is also a fundamental building for any AI tool you're using. Then there are prompt books which can be categorized. So let's say for a L1, right? Script analyzer can be one prompt book. You give a script that gives you particular summary, and then from that you find out the incident and go from there and things like that, right? Now, what happens with that is then let's go to the level 2 one, right? Level 2 is a little more matured. We want to do incident triaging and look at the devices, IP addresses, user account attached, and then from there it goes on, goes on, goes on. Now, if you talk about level 3, right? In a level 3 SOC analyst, if I'm so all I'm responsible, right? I do more of advanced hunting, right, than incident analysis. So what I would say, give me all the things, find out top 10 IOCs from Defender, right, and give me all the incident or all the alerts wherein this IOC is associated, and then build the executive summary. Now, prompt book has its categories, right, and all the repeatable tasks, whatever is available, that can be actually implemented to prompt books. Now, testing and validation, obviously that's a mandatory stuff, right, because we are writing something and asking question to a AI model technically. So with that said, AI model stuff, we would say, we need to iterate from certain things. There are some examples, there are some examples, I would say, right, which is basically talking about what prompt can be written, what not to be written, and what can be templatized, and how you can test it, right? Now, just to give you a quick summary, what is that you're going to take away from that? Obviously, I'll have some resources shared, but I'll also try to share some repository, right, wherein Microsoft has, or basically it's also a bit of community driven, wherein you can get your jumpstart resources if you're understanding and learning prompt or prompt book creation. So with that said, you would understand how to craft a particular prompt in Security Copilot, how to organize the workflow. That means, like, for example, if you're doing incident triaging, right, the first question you should ask is, what is the incident? Then get the entities, not the other way around, right? Then obviously using prompt for detailed investigation analysis. Let's say if I say, okay, give me the alert associated to the IP address x dot x dot x dot x, right, and that gives me, and then I triage it, and then we can hunt more and more. And another important point when you write a prompt, right, it has to be in a way that, so let's take a step back here. We talk about a little bit what a prompt is. So in a prompt, we give a role which is already given here because Security Copilot is well versed with the security workflows. Now we ask it to do something. Let's say go and find out certain IP addresses, go and find out some host names, right? And then we expect the output to be a particular format. Maybe I'll ask, give me a list, give me 10 days data, give me 20 days data, things like that, right? And then you start validating. So that is what you're going to kind of learn that, right? Now, the next thing I'm gonna talk about is, right, it's basically the anatomy, what makes a good prompt. And again, as I say, just bear with me for the slide for a couple of minutes, then I'll quickly jump onto the portal to actually show you what the prompt look like, and how you can build one on your own, right? Basic is, you have to be very clear on your intent. When you say intent, right, that what is that? As an analyst, I'm going to do, am I trying to convert a incident response workflow to a prompt book, or am I going to do advanced hunting, or am I going to do a workflow consolidation, or am I going to do basic triaging, right? Then we're gonna ask a specific question. Let's say if I want to do incident analysis, right? That means fundamentally I have to provide one incident for analysis. I cannot simply say that, okay, give me the IOCs. That's not a correct correlation between intent and context, right? Then you have to go for relevant data, data or reference. Now here is a catch. Copilot for security is capable of going into multiple systems, let's say Intune, Purview, or any third party system, right? Let's say third party EDR, if I talk about CrowdStrike and things like that, right? It can definitely go there and then correlate that data and then a reference to give you a better answer at a machine speed. Now what and how that is possible, it depends on the way it is configured and it is operationalized. And then fundamentally, as I say again, right, we always supposed to specify what is the output format. Do we want a tabular output? Do you want an executive summary? Do we want, let's say you give a script, we say that script is given, analyze that, and if I have found some script in some of the system, what should be the remediation steps that can give that. So it's more of logical and technical together, how the expected outcome format should be addressed and how you should ask for it. Now the next thing on a categorize, and I think these are more than categories. The reason I put categories because these are also examples available, right? In that case, after the example is available, I would say we can definitely look at this example, how they look like. I'm gonna run you through, right? It is available in the Copilot for security screen. One is incident in investigation. So as I was saying, so let's say investigation incident in sorry, incident investigation. If we want to tag it, we would definitely tag it to as a L1 playbook, right? Same thing for threat hunting. Threat hunting obviously is done by more senior people and then the people who are into L3 SOC or L2 SOC, right? That's like advanced hunting, what you do to find out more gaps, more and more gaps in SOC, right? Um, the next one is script generation. So obviously, if you want to write a KQL query or if you wanted to generate some script also, you can do that. The last two, I would say, is majorly for L1 kind of playbook, wherein, as I say, giving the scenario, right, there's a SOC who is receiving 10,000 alerts a day, right? So let's say there are like 5-member team or 10-member team, right? Everybody is flooded. Nobody know what to start with. Nobody know what to go and what are the things to correlate. That's where you would summarize that alerts and it can exactly summarize what are the details there. And with Defender for TI integration, you can always do IOC extraction. That means, let's say you have 5,000 alert created, right? 5,000 alert will have some sort of entity mapping and entity map. After that entity mapping, it will have an account, it will have a host, it will have a domain and things like that. And we can do some IOC extraction out of that and then correlate that with Defender for TI, right? So I think that's about the thing about from categories. Um, and the next thing I'm say, as I've been talking about a lot, right, that who should use what. Alert summarization triaging can be a tier one. Deep dive, which is more of a threat hunting or advanced hunting stuff, right? It is basically a tier two one. Tier three is, let's say you are already having this detection and coverage, you want to do some threat hunting, that's a tier 3 one, right? So that's how you basically map things, right? Now obviously testing and validation is one step, but maybe I would try to hold on to this slides right now and quickly jump onto the portal and show you a quick demo of what Copilot for security can actually do, right? For that, I would definitely go to the previous screen. This is my Azure portal, as you can see. And in that, what happens is fundamentally you have to understand to run Copilot for security, right? You have to create a particular kind of a resource in Azure, which we call Microsoft Security Compute Capacity or SCU, right? Imagine this like a virtual machine, right? You create a virtual machine to deploy your AI model security copilot so that it's limited to only you, and then you give it a name, and then when you create so copilot for security, you attach it. right? Now, how do we attach it? You just come to the settings. I'll go here. I'm just taking this step back because for the people who are new here, right? So if you go to here, owner settings and then generic settings, yeah, that's where you see a couple of settings here, right? Now, by default, will be land up in home. And as you see, there are a couple of things, right? I would go for prompt books directly here. And as I was giving example, right? Microsoft has by default couple of playbooks created, and this is one which one I have created custom, which I'll show you how I've created and how you can create your own as well. Yeah. Now, with that said, let's try to pick risky user investigation and Microsoft get started. So the moment I hit get started, right, what it would do, see, it opened a series of prompts with an input and output driven to it, right? And then it'll ask. So let's go about it. Select all the sensitive activities performed by. So when you do a risky user, right, obviously we have to put a variable called UPN for last, let's say last 30 days, right? And then I just enter it, and then again I would say UPN. I need to put the UPN here. There's also a couple of optional fields if you want to enter unaltered prompt by the user. Similar to this, you would be able to basically all you're doing is instead of your half an hour task, right, all you're doing is opening this prompt book, right, and then trying to give it a flavor in a way that just give the inputs, right? Was the So what it is doing first, it is trying to get that first question, right, sensitive data. Second thing is in the UPN space, right, was UPN was involved by any potential sensitive data like email forwarding and all. The prompt is already there, and if you want to edit the prompt also, you can basically do that. Let's say there's a little bit of change in the one, and then you can change it, right? So now I'll go to the third step. It is summarizing the sensitive data interaction over last days and what it will do behind the scene. I'll come to that point later. Right. So now the next thing is, which I would say come here, and the fourth one is, did the UPN exhibit any unusual behavior to take common actions like excessive access? Now you see, as an analyst, right, if you take any of the steps, maybe to execute one step itself, right, it would take like 10 to 20 minutes, depending on data volume, complexity, and then person who is running his SOC knowledge. Now, having said that, after we kind of do all this, right, we just keep on looking at the next prompt, which is again anything associated with the alerts. Basically, it's going to multiple systems and then creating multiple inputs. And obviously, you see, sometime it's going to purview knowledge base, sometime it's going to data security analytics, and you can add one more prompt also. After all this, all you say is submit. Now, when you submit, obviously this is going to charge, so I'm not gonna run right now, but this is what's gonna happen, for the existing one. So let me get back to this one and go to prompt book. Right now, I'll open the prompt book what I have mentioned here. Let's say get started. Now, what we wrote, right, that used Microsoft ecosystems, hub, and all those things are fine. Now here, what I am provide me the GCP IP list. So if you look at, right, obviously GCP IP list will not be in Microsoft ecosystem. So what it does, there is something called plugin. Plugin is more of a connector, which is running behind the scene when I write that prompt, right? So you can technically write a prompt, even your whole response, incident response, right? So let's say you do a hash check to some vendors, you do a malicious file check in some vendors. You can create plugin and start implementing those plugins and use that as a part of prompt book itself. So now it's a GCP list. Can you please confirm if this IP is a part of that? And then can you please confirm is this part of IP ranges and IP reputation score? So it's one after another, right? If you look at the prompt and when I submit, obviously it's gonna run that plugin if it is there and enable and give me the results, right? So that's basically, and again, as I say, right, this need not to be like a super big one. It can be any small thing, as long as it is able to justify and able to do some job over here, that what is required, what is not. Yes, it is good to go. Now, that is how basically you run an existing playbook, right? Next thing what I'm going to show you, let's say, you want to create your own, obviously, as a SOC, right? When you run a SOC, you definitely would want to have your own playbook created, because every SOC have its own way of handling incident response plan and things like that. Now for that, by nature, whenever we write some query, right? So if I go to my sessions, this will list down all the sessions I ran in the past. You see, I ran long back, but that's still there, right? So, and session is like, if I, let's say, open this one, for example, right? So, so I was doing, let's say, me as a L3 analyst, we start creating this and then start looking into a couple of things. Obviously, there'll be some errors, some things, and a couple of other things, right? And this also has a response. Now I feel that, okay, the steps I have mentioned here, right? This is again a very small example. You can have your like 10, 12 steps, whatever you want to do, right? Then I feel that this is an important thing which can be reused by the team as a part of incident response, or maybe incident analysis, or triaging, whatever, and that can save time. So all I would say, see, there's a checkbox here. I'll select all, and then if I want to take out any specific thing which I don't find relevant, right, I can just take it out, right? Is one step. That's why I'm not getting anything. But after that, all I'm going to do is create a prompt book. So when I say create a prompt book, right, what it's going to give me, name, sample prompt book, right? Obviously I'll give the same description. So you see, right, it is internally using also plugins, and that's what I was coming from, right? You can add one more prompt, you can look at the plugin, you can have third-party plugins and all. After this I'll show you where exactly to activate the plugin as well. You can parameterize it, what to be done, what need to be done. And then when you're experimenting, obviously you can do it just me, or if it is productionalized, you can say anyone in my organization. Now after that, we will quickly create it. You see, it's view, obviously it's done now. So it's that simple. So once it is created, right, I can view, I can share. The good part is I can share with my coworkers as well. Prompt book library, if I want to go or view, let me view it. See, it went to the prompt book library and then start a new session, right? That's what it's going to be. And each time you are able to edit that when you run the prompt book. That means, you have your workflows. You can definitely look at the workflows and go from there and then start creating your prompt books. You can customize them each run, right? You don't need to be like running a whole thing as a common. And to filter out the custom prompt books, I would say, you would say my prompt books, and you see this is one thing is created, right? And I say click on the start new session, it's gonna start. So that's about how do we basically create prompt books, right? Now let me quickly show you under the settings what a plugin is. So let me see, I think preferences, it should be, no, it's not here. It's basically plugin settings. If I click on that, manage plugin, who can manage plugin and stuff like that, and there we go. You are able to manage all the plugins it wants to be, right? Let me go back to home again, and role assignment, owner settings, prompt book library. Obviously I can go to the prompt book library if I want to, and that gives me the same view of it, right? So that was really a quick demo of how you can build a prompt book, right? And obviously coming to the costing piece of it, right? You would go for Azure credits, or it's gonna be in your billing in your Azure, whatever things. Now for whom it is useful, right? So let's say you are a kind of a manager in SOC, right? You want to do executive summary of like 50,000 alerts created across your 50 customers. You can definitely run one, right? That's how that's how you'd be able to do that, right? Also what you could do is you can look at the usage monitoring. Obviously I've turned it on, and turn it on like 1 hour back. There's nothing from billing standpoint, as long as I'm not writing a prompt. So let me get back to the thing here, and then quickly go to plugin settings, as I say, who can create plugins, and you know, obviously, you have a toggle button if you want to create. Okay, allow security copilot access data from Microsoft services. I would keep it turned on because it gives you better flexibility and better accessibility to analyze and to detail out other stuff, right? So that's about it. I think that was a kind of quick demo we had under, and obviously if you're running in multiple tenants, you would see the tenant option, uh, and it's a tenant level setting, right? So, and if you want to filter, right, let's say you want to filter prompt book, Microsoft has also done some sort of role segregation, right? Let's say what are the things for SOC analyst. If I go there, you see all four are coming in. What are the plugins I want? All these plugins. So this is a custom plugin, whatever I've created, right? Now, let's say if you want to start from here, right? Let me also show you whenever we are building a prompt book, I talked about plugin and sources, right? So if I click on that particular thing, you see plugin came up. So that means what I am empowering Security Copilot with, that it can go and look at now on Microsoft. There are 35 other plugins available out of the box. You can create your own anytime. Let's say all these clickfish, or let's say dark trace, or if I just scroll down, right, they are basically nothing but other stuff here, uh, and things like that. And also, if you wanted to go to public website, if you want to go to custom, so for example, these are the things whatever I have written already custom, right? Sentinel on MITRE, SOAR automation, GCP. So and also able to create a plugin on that, and each plugin will have its own settings, and then you can edit the file and then basically, modify that, right? Not getting into that detail as such, but yeah, that's about it. And then obviously you can again look at prom books, and then click on the small button here, it's search with, and then see all the prom books. Or also you can search for that, it comes. Let's say if I click on here again, the behavior is same. So every time you create, it's create a new session, and then from that session we're gonna look at what are the things available and stuff like that, right? So I think that was a kind of a quick demo around Copilot for security as such. Right, now let me quickly jump back to the slides, see what's in there now. Testing and validation, right? So as we have seen, right, law prompt book, something is created, and then after we create, we do other stuff, and then we validate. How do we basically validate, right? So one way of validating, the ideal case is always we should start with one particular incident response or one such use case which already the SOC team is doing, right? Then we can compare the output and the visibility, right? So visibility actually. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So basically, what happens there is, right, understanding the stuff over, and then because you have a frame of reference, right? That has a frame of reference saying that, okay, I would say, what is the ROI kind of SOC is giving right now. Let's say if I quickly again go back to this, right? Let me just quickly get back to this use case. So Promptbooks, and in the Promptbook, I'd say let's take this one, right? Check the impact of an external threat article, or maybe a Microsoft Sentinel investigation. So let's say for any Sentinel investigation, right, all we're going to ask is input our Sentinel incident ID. Then if you see, tell me the associated Sentinel incident, tell me the IPv4 address, tell me the indicator and MFA is enabled for the account, all other stuff, right? So this is more of an incident response plan mapped as an incident response and investigation playbook. Now, this is one such activity which is done by, I think, I would say majority of the SOC provider. That's what they follow, right? Now, once we start using this, right, the best criteria to identify is Copilot beneficial or not, right? Look at how much time it takes, how much incident is able to do it, give this to your analyst, and then see how much better he can do and how much faster he can do. So that's one way of measuring the SOC ROI with Copilot for security. Because imagine that there's one step, right? What is the reputation of IPv address in Sentinel? So obviously, as an analyst, right, I have to go to, let's say, one of the vendors, for example, what is my IP or stuff like that, to go there and then stick in the IP and then get that IP score and then feed in that to my incident manual investigation, Word or OneNote, whatever I'm using, then take the first step. But Security Copilot does it all. So imagine that incident which was taking 45 minutes to kind of, solve or even to understand that's a true positive or false positive, that comes down to, let's say, 10 minutes, right? And it can happen at a machine speed. Obviously you can run parallel threads and things like that. So obviously I'd not say, you start running for all the incident, because that's gonna cost really really a lot. But the ideal would be like, take the most precious case, and also you can combine multiple stuff here, right? Let's say I want to have executive summary for all these things and run it from here. So that would be, I would say, the testing and validation criteria, right? And obviously when it does, right, because it's an AI tool, it's very well good in documenting stuff. That means when it responds, right, let's say if I ask it to check an MFA, so in real time what we do, we manually check it, right? Go to enter ID, check the user is having MFA or not, and take a note of it. But when you ask a copilot, it can tell, okay, MFA was there, MFA, last MFA login happened on so and so date, and it was a successful MFA login from this country. Now imagine the richness of that, right? If as an analyst, if you want to go that richer, it's really really difficult. And with the volume of incident today SOCs are facing, it's not really a good idea. It's not feasible at all, because you have to maintain your SLA as well, right? So that's the benefit of writing the good prompt and testing and validating once you have that, right? Now obviously why it matters, these numbers again taken from certain some of the other matrices, right? It might change time to time, but overall, as I say, 60% faster, because I just showed you, right? If I click on an incident which takes 45 minutes to solve it in 10 minutes. 45 minutes reduction in alert fatigue. Obviously that 5,000 number will come down, because I can ask a question to Copilot, okay, why, what are the false positive, and find a common pattern, find the common entities which are creating false positive. And if that gives me 5 entities, I know that those 5 entities and accounts are need to be fixed or need to be whitelisted. So that's where I would be able to get rid of my 80% of incident. So my incident queue is clear. I am more having more bandwidth to serve, do more advanced hunting and things like that, right? And you see Microsoft blocks over 100 million things and that things like that. So from a proactive SOC, this can help you to be, sorry, from a reactive SOC, wherein you respond when something comes in, it can help you to do in a situation, or it can help you to kind of go by a standard wherein you're able to prevent before it happens, right? So I think that would be like a quick summary of Promptbook, right? And here are some resources. I will share that shortly in the chat. Once we have this, so go through this and then fundamentally look at what exactly these resources talk about. Microsoft has really done ample amount of research on this, and there's a very well documentation, right? And also let me try to get to, I would say, always I try to, this is my go-to place whenever I'm trying to do something in Security Copilot, right? So if you look at, right, this is the Microsoft repo mostly wherein you get all the prompt books. So let's say if I go to prompt book samples, right, let's go for enter ID risky one, right? It gives you like, generate a report based on enter plugin. This is the user ID, is a risky, yes, list the reasons. Now, so this gives you entire from book with the documentation. Now obviously you can your workflow might be 20-30% different, but imagine that you get a combination or a match of 60% of your use case or your incident response plan. You pick it up, create a prompt book, test it, and be ready with your SOC. And your SOC can basically, withstand that faster and faster and faster, right? So, and if you look at this, there are really good amount of samples, and these are like enter risky users. So I think every SOC analyst will have an idea what enter ID is. It's an identity store, right? That is good enough to start with. You don't even need like a really deep dive in security as well to get through this, because it is all being written by a common language. Yeah. Now, if I go to other one, obviously there are some sample playbooks, prom books. If you look at, there are other resources as well, right? So please do follow these and try to clone this whatever needed, right? And as I showed, right, you just need to create one particular prompt, set up prompt in your Copilot for security instance, and then from there you basically go ahead and then start reusing it across SOC. Yeah. So I think that's mostly about it, right? But that said, I would be definitely more than happy for any questions you have.
Hey, Samek. Firstly, thank you so much. I got a very decent understanding of what prompt book is, where to look for it from security aspect, where people really don't give much of an importance for the security part of it. So thank you so much for sharing this. So moving on to the questions, I quickly have one question where I've been asked a lot. So just to check on it. Now,
Yeah,
from an analyst point of view,
yeah.
if they want to contribute a new or an improved prompt book back, what is the process and how do they do it? I'm sure you showed the sample one.
Yeah. So that's a great question, right? So I think to answer to that or to address that, right, from an analyst, if you want to contribute, right, fundamental way is, obviously if I'm a security analyst, I'm working in a SOC, definitely the SOC would have some sort of incident response playbook. That can be a simple one: finding out an IP address, finding out an host, detect a host, find a malicious malware and things like that. And that'll have a workflow which you generally in security term call it incident response. So ideally the ideal way would be to create that as a part of prom book, right, so that it can be used by the whole team. And when you do it
Okay.
right, you run it through one or two incident, maybe the most noisiest one, because that's where it will add more value, right? And then save it in Copilot. Now that's saved in an instance. Now if you feel it is more generic and you are also like community contributor, right, you can go ahead and then publish in a GitHub or try to make a pull request to the repo I shared, right? And then go from there. I'd say
Uh-huh.
that would be the ideal way to, or the workflow to pick it up from one of the noisiest one, correlate with the incident response plan, build your prompt book, test with one or two incident, and save it.
Okay. Um, Thank you so much. But this is going to be a very naive question. But I still ask this: can prompt
Yeah.
suggestion evolve based on your previous or past outcomes or analytics behavior, or based on the analyst behavior?
I think exactly yes, right? Because see, why, as a starting point we can take an incident response workbook or incident response playbook, right? And most of the cases, to be honest, those are coming from ages, so that doesn't mean they are accurate. So there is always a chance that things can be improved, and we can ask, let's say, right, as a part of an incident response, right, at step number 3 there's a query which gives you last login details for a particular user, right? And you are using a particular query. Now when you write that in Security Copilot and try to build a prompt book, it can create a better one because it is learning day by day. That is one thing. Second thing is, the better question you ask, that parameter, right, it basically passes the context to the next prompt. So let's say if I tell, give an incident ID and ask, give me the entities for that can give me account, that can give me host, and that can give me IP address. Now my next prompt would be depending on what incident I'm analyzing, right? I have to figure out it is an account, it is an IP, or it's an host, and I can rewrite the next prompt. And eventually, uh, in each prompt response, right, Microsoft has a thumbs up option. That means the response it generated, right, was it good enough? So, and that feedback exactly works to that particular Copilot incident, so Copilot for security instance. So yeah, that's the way. Look at your existing one and don't leave it apart. That whenever you're running an incident, right, try to edit the queries here and there, and also ask Copilot to give the right feedback. That's where it be able to maybe more have a more enhanced version of the playbook, which is more accurate, more optimal.
Very true, very true.
Yeah.
And that actually kind of leads me to another question. How do we kind of combine multiple prompts into the prompt chain? Because, or is the orchestration built to
I
handle
think
this?
the orchestration is built already to handle this, right? the ideal way to do it, right? Sorry. So first of all, as I say, right, when you get a little used to with Copilot for security, you don't pick up any existing incident, right? You start writing your own prompt. You write a first prompt, right? That gives a response. Then you write a second prompt that doesn't give so much good response. Then you write a third one. Then you write a fourth one. Like this, you write 10 prompts. Correct. Now, whenever you're trying to convert that as a prompt book, you have the flexibility to choose 4 out of 10 for the best sequenced four, right? And then fine tune it again. So as long as you are not happy with that, you can definitely do that, and that prompt chaining happens that way. As I give an example, right? If I ask incident, given an incident number, give me the entities, it's going to give me username, it's going to give me IP address, it's going to give me devices, for example. Now my
Yeah.
next prompt can be definitely a combination of all three, or it can be dedicated to IP address or host. So and the prompt chaining, to answer to that, yes, it always holds the context. So it is inbuilt.
All right. Okay. I think definitely we'll have to come up with a part two series to understand more on this.
Yep.
So thank you so much, Samik. It's been pleasure having you on the Copilot Chronicle series.
Thank you.
So audience, we will leave the link of social handle of Samik if you're totally fine with it, where audience will get in touch with you in order to
Yep.
understand more from the security purpose side of Copilot and to understand more on the prompt book. So
Yep.
feel free to reach out, and the event code is available. Learn more. We have another few exciting sessions coming up on Copilot Chronicles. Thank you, Rashmita, for being a great host. Thank you, Samik, for being an awesome speaker. And
Thank
see you
you.
all in the next season.
Thank you, everyone.